All right. Hello, everyone. I think we are live. It says meeting is now streaming live on Facebook. So welcome members of the Profitable Christian Business Owners community. If you're watching this live or you're watching this on a replay, I am so pleased to have my guest, Dale Young, with me here today. Dale and I are going to dive into some really, we're going to dive into his story. We're going to dive into some of his expertise. He's been coaching for a long time now, and I'm anxious to get to know some of these things as well. So welcome, Dale.
Well, thank you so much, Doug, and I am so honored to be here.
Nice. So this is the Entrepreneur Journey podcast, but we are just happen to be going live in the Profitable Christian Business Owners community. If you want to ever catch this live, join the Profitable Christian Business Owners community, and you can watch these interviews live. Otherwise, you catch it on Spodcast or Spodcast on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. So, Dale, don't want to fully go into your story right now, but I kind of want you to tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am focused on inspiring business owners, entrepreneurs, and leaders, business leaders, to really embrace their divine destiny and eternal purpose. And that really leads to what I call your calling. And I use the word calling for a very specific reason. And I'm sure we'll get into that. But I really feel like when you step into your calling, a lot of really good things happen, including you get more peace, more direction, and more joy.
Well, I know this is going to be a good conversation because I know all about that myself, because there was a time when I wasn't going towards my calling, and the where I am now is totally different. So this is going to be a really great conversation. What I like to do at the beginning of these interviews is kind of have some fun, some getting to know you questions, just kind of break the ice, if you will. And the default answer, I already knew what the default answer to this question was going to be, so I had to include in the question not to use that. So other than the Holy Bible, what book or movie has had a profound impact on your life?
Well, there's been several, but I would say probably the book was The Lord of the Rings. I found that in college, read it in a weekend, read all three books in the Lord of the Rings series in a weekend. Did not get much sleep that weekend, but it was something that really impacted me greatly for many years. And then I found out some of the backstory behind it, where he had actually based a lot of the stuff on the Bible and the stories in the Bible. And so it was kind of like, oh, well, yeah, classic good versus evil and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I'd say that one was a big one.
I'm a big fan of that trilogy as well. Like that and Star Wars kind of are at a battle for me. I grew up in the 80s, so Star Wars was big, but when Lord of the Rings came around, I thought they really did the books justice when they made the movies. Which
They
you
did.
don't often find. So yeah, it was really, really good. And on that note too, kind of similar is the Chronicles of Narnia, right? Where it was
Hmm.
even more, you could tie it to the stories in the Bible. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
really, really
You
cool.
mentioned Star Wars, though. The only movie I've seen in the theater more than three times was the original Star Wars. And I
Wow.
saw it about nine times in the theater, and who knows how many times since then. So.
Yeah, nice, nice, nice. So other than movies, do you have any hobbies or interests that might surprise anyone?
Well, I'm not sure if it's really a surprise, but Christian concerts is one of my
Mm,
my big ones. Got married. Be in June will be 3 years, and in June, sorry, in 2021 and 2022, we both hit nine concerts that year, each year,
wow.
and then last year in 23 we hit 10. So
Wow.
we're probably not going to make that many this year, but
Nice. Do
yeah.
you have a favorite Christian artist?
Oh gosh, Mercy Me,
Mm,
Casting Crowns, uh, Zach Williams,
Zach
Phil
Williams.
Wickham,
The list goes
Brandon
on.
Brandon Lake is one of my newest big ones. Just saw him just a few weeks ago here. So
Nice.
yeah.
Unfortunately, my wife and I were going to see Zach Williams at a concert. This was during COVID, like right before he announced the dates before COVID, and then COVID happened, and they had to move the dates, and we couldn't go at the new dates. So we did not get to see Zach Williams, and we really wanted to. We saw Casting Crowns in the past. We really loved Casting Crowns. We listened to a lot of it's on our radio almost constantly. So really,
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, the big one I think for me, we saw Mercy Me at Red Rocks up in
Mm,
Colorado. That
wow.
was an amazing show, and we're booked to see King and Country at Red Rocks
Oh,
this year.
that's who I've also want to see. I've also want to see Need to Breathe.
Hmm.
Very, very talented as well. So nice.
Yeah.
Now talking about travel a little bit, you said Red Rocks. Are you located near Red Rocks?
No, I'm in the DFW area. I'm actually west of the Fort Worth area.
Okay, okay, nice. I've been talking to a lot of people from Texas lately. My wife just visited Austin on a work meeting, so it's really, really cool. So if you could travel anywhere in the United States, in the world right now, like this time of year, where would you go?
You know, we've been doing the eyes here lately. So Israel, Italy, Ireland. We went to
Oh, wow.
Iceland last year about in June. And so we've been doing the eye people here lately. So it would be Israel if there's not a war going on.
Yes.
Italy probably after that.
Yeah, that's one of our destinations that we want to go to is Italy. Um, Israel, funny story, not funny story, but right before the conflict started there, our pastor had took some people to Israel like a week and a half before that broke out, and luckily they got home before all that started. So
Yeah.
okay, this is a segment that is in every one of these entrepreneur journey interviews, and it's the fill in the blank question. And I'm always surprised often to hear what someone has to say as their fill in the blank. Your question is, or your fill in the blank is rather, entrepreneurship is the vehicle through which I blank.
Serve people would be the
Mm,
first and most obvious one. But I believe the serving people comes down to specific calling. I already talked about calling a little bit. I think every Christian has a general calling, right?
mhm.
And the general calling is love God and love others as yourself, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey all I've commanded you. That's a general calling for all Christians. But
The
I
Great
believe
Commission.
that Great
Yeah,
Commission, Great Commandment.
yeah.
I believe that we're also, in addition to that general calling, we have a specific calling, and that specific calling is based on who we are specifically created to be in Christ. And so you have to know who you are first.
Mm,
Who does God say you know? And then you can go through and get all these other things. But once you get your unique gifts and talents, your unique strengths, your unique values, all your unique past, and how your heart is wired to really focus on certain things and not others. I believe all of those are kind of hardwired in you from God right to start with. And if it's not hardwired enough, he lets circumstances kind of direct you so that you get to those places. And so my specific calling right now is to inspire calling in others. And so
nice.
that's what I specifically am using my entrepreneurial vehicle to do.
Nice, nice. I love that answer. So now let's kind of go into your story and you might have to talk about how you got to your calling through this story. So just whatever, this is free form. So wherever you want to start and wherever you want to take us to, you want to start from the very beginning, take us to where you are now. You can, if you want to start kind of in the middle, just what would be most impactful for our audience as your story?
Well, I like to start in 1992. And in 1992, I'm in my technology profession. That's the profession I graduated college with and learned to program early, did a
Mm,
lot of nerdy type stuff, a lot of propeller head type stuff. And so, that was the profession I was really happy with. God kind of just basically opened the door and I fell into it. It was really kind of interesting that way. But the interesting thing was I wasn't really a Christian. I
mm,
wasn't raised in a Christian household, wasn't following Christ, didn't even know what that meant. I had prayed the prayer several years earlier, but had no life change and nothing was different about my life. I was leading a secular life. And that's the way it was in 1992. I was working for a defense contractor, and I was in Australia at the time.
mm.
And in Australia, we were making some crazy money. It was like 54% bonus on our base pay. travel and housing and utilities were all provided, just all kinds of other stuff, right? And they started taxing something. I think it was the housing part. They started putting a tax on the housing. And there was a group of us that we all went to lunch together all the time. And we were at lunch and we were just tearing up one side and down the other about this tax. And this tax was, maybe just a little bit on what was a great big bonus.
Mhm.
But I was right in there tearing it up with them, right? And out of my mouth comes these words. Well, maybe we really shouldn't complain. After all, this is just a job, not a career.
Mm.
And it was in that moment, and I've been working for this company for 10 years at that point, something like that, 10,
Mm.
12 years. And so I had thought it was my career, but
Mm.
I realized my heart was telling my head something at that
Mhm.
point. It would have been a great coaching moment if a coach had been present. I guess it was kind of a self-coaching moment or something. But just hearing myself say that, I don't know if you've ever had that experience of, oh, I really needed to hear myself say that,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
That was what I needed to hear at that moment.
Mhm.
And so that actually set me on what ended up being a 30-year journey. And that 30-year journey went from career through passion, through mission, through purpose, through why, and finally ended up in calling in 2022. So that was the 30-year journey that I went on that. So
Wow.
that's kind of a brief overview. So I'll let you ask questions about where to dive into that.
Nice. Well, give me a second. So 1992 is interesting year. That's the year I graduated high school. Um, you said you had mentioned programming in there. So
Mm-hmm.
you would start. So I'm just putting together a correlation there. I went to college, so like I didn't go directly to college from high school, but when I went to college, I went for computer information systems in the mid 90s. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
different now than it definitely was then. So I just thought that was interesting. What this is just coming off the top of my head. What drove you to want to get into that field?
Uh, well, it was one of the cases where I had taken physics and chemistry and advanced stuff in high school and thought I wanted to be a physics major.
Mm.
And I went to college in 1972. So I just turned 70 years old. So there
Wow,
you go.
I
Yeah.
cannot tell that. I
Yeah.
thought you were my age until you said that 1992 part. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So I actually went in being a physics major, but they would not allow me to take a physics class because I did not have calculus in high
Mm.
school. Okay. And so I had to set out a semester and get a semester of calculus under my belt. And during that semester, they had this bridge course or something that was called physical simulation via computer. Well,
Mm.
I'd been exposed to computers, but I hadn't really been around computers. This is 72, right? They're not
Hmm.
very common, right?
Right.
And so,
And they're super big.
yeah, yeah. So it turns out that this one was working on a mini computer, and the mini computer was 9-inch rack, 6 foot
Yeah.
tall, all
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. But it had teletypes hooked up to it that you could do your programming on the teletypes using BASIC of all
Hmm.
languages. And so I got into doing this physical simulation on computer and found I loved it.
Mm.
Okay. And so for about another 2 semesters, I was going through physics and computer science because I
Mm.
love both of them.
Hmm.
And then come up a time that at one point I actually got a B in physics and an A in computer
Mm.
science. And it kind of woke me up and said, oh, let's look at the job possibilities
Hmm.
that are out there at the moment. And there's a whole lot more with computer science.
Hmm.
And, it's an up and growing and coming field and all that. And it's like, I'm going to switch to computer science. So I actually did that. But through that process, I actually got a job on campus as a programmer during that
Nice.
time.
Wow.
And that was really unusual.
Yeah.
I think there was like a total of maybe 10 or 8 or 10 of us that got those coveted jobs. And
Hmm.
I guess they just offered it to me because I was always hanging out in the lab with my friends that already had the job or something like
Nice.
that. So
Nice.
anyway, but I found that I just loved it. And it was one of those things that I kind of fell into it.
So, so you were on, I'm going to kind of speed up a little bit. So you had gotten a job in this field. So you had mentioned that those words came out of your mouth that it's not just that it's not a career, it's just a job. So
Yeah.
up until that point, you thought it was a job the whole time. You never thought you had a career. And basically, I guess what I'm really trying to get at is, was there a other than saying those words, was there a pivotal point that made you want to really make that transition? Was there anything else that happened during that time that really wanted to make you make that transition?
I guess you could probably say that there was just a lot of stuff going on. I'd been in Australia for,
Mm,
I think, 5 years at that point. Had actually been in Australia for 3 years before that under kind of a
mhm,
uh, separate engagement type of thing. And it was just like, I feel like the world is passing me by when I'm
mm,
down here.
mm,
We were in a very remote area. It was,
mhm.
just outside of Alice Springs, which is in the center of the continent. And it
Wow.
was like, I see all this great stuff happening with the computer field
Mhm,
back in the States,
mhm,
and I feel like I'm not part of it. So there was part of that. There was also the case that my dad, who I wasn't real close with, my dad was in a nursing home and he actually died
mhm.
later that year in 1992. And so I'm sure there was some kind of relational angst that was
Oh, yeah.
going on as well.
Did you? So when did you start getting into coaching? Was it at that point?
Now, coaching didn't really happen until a little bit later. So after 92, I got back to the States in 94, changed careers to something else, started doing more database stuff, changed in another couple of years in 96 to computer consulting around databases and system and operating systems. And then in 1998, I actually became a follower of Christ. I actually had, my wife at the time had said, "Hey, we need to go to church." I said, "Well, I guess that's what Christians do." I thought I was a Christian, so we started going to church. But I heard the message at a funeral that really converted me and really got, my head told my heart, "Hey,
Hmm.
we really need to do this thing." And so I jumped in that. Been part of a startup company in 2000. A technology startup company in the year 2000. Can you say bad timing?
Well, yeah. Wow.
But during that process, we actually ended up hitting number 10 on the entrepreneur fastest growing 100 companies in the US
Wow.
and for 2000. Because we started basically at nothing and we
Mm-hmm.
ended up with millions in revenue because we were doing a lot of hardware sales. And then we repeated on number 23 in 2002. And then 2004, we ended up having leadership squabbles and
Mm.
had to shut the company down.
Wow.
And so it was a real roller coaster journey at that point. And so I have a heart for entrepreneurs from that period of time,
Mm.
plus getting into my coaching side of things. So
During
it goes,
any, oh, sorry.
go ahead, go
I
ahead.
was just say, during any of these transitions, did you have fear, trepidation? Were you confident in going through each one of these transitions?
Up until the shutting down of the company, I really had not had any fear.
Wow.
It all just seemed like, okay, this is just a natural step of my evolution type of thing.
Yeah.
That startup company, I was actually vice president of, and so I was second in command at the company. I really got into doing a lot more personal development and a lot more team development during that
Oh,
time. So
nice.
you could almost say that was kind of the start of my coaching
Nice.
journey at that point. But anyway, after we shut it down, got moved over to another company, still doing computer consulting. Had been doing a lot of volunteer work with an organization called Pathways,
Mm.
does experiential based training and whatever. Learned a little bit about coaching there. Was able to set up a new contract in Houston in 2006 that went annual in 2007 for $1 million a year. Now, this was a managed services contract. The company we were working for was only a $12 million annual revenue company.
Mm.
So we got a lot of press from that.
Yeah.
And so they gave me a lot of latitude. And I set
Yeah.
up a team that I think was, it really does really reflect how well the team was set up in that 7 years later, in 2014, I'm no longer part of managing that team, but it's still going. And then another 8 years after that, in 2021, when I finally leave that company for good for the last time, we still have a contract with that client.
Nice.
Now the team had morphed and changed, the contract had changed, but the fact that we had a managed services contract for 15 years with a client is saying a lot.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I wanted to ask that question is because I wanted your perspective on this, because the whole thing, faith over fear, right? And I think Christians have a different mindset. Christian entrepreneurs have a different mindset a lot, and are able to, and so at least the ones I encountered, you seem to be able to weather storms somewhat a little bit better than someone who doesn't have any faith, who doesn't know God, right? So I just kind of want to get your perspective on the whole proceeding in faith over fear.
Well, I don't see how non-believers do it. I
So,
mean, you want to be really honest about it.
yeah,
I would freak out if I didn't have faith behind me.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I'll just put it that way. It gives me incredible comfort to know that I have the God who created the universe
Mhm.
and created me. He's in my corner. He loves me. He wants the best for me, and he's going to take care of me.
Yeah,
That doesn't mean it's going to be a smooth journey.
that's right. That's
One
right.
one of the things I like to say is God cares more about your calling than your comfort.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's
Mm-hmm.
going to get you out of your comfort zone.
Yep.
And so you might as well cooperate with him and just go willingly right to start with rather
Yep.
than
Yep.
kicking and screaming.
I've never heard an entrepreneur say, "I'm going to get into entrepreneurship. I'm going to start a business because it's easy." Right?
Doesn't work that way.
That's right. That's right. So, let's get into your expertise a little bit. I ask a secret question to every entrepreneur, and your secret question is, what is the secret to not being distracted by shiny object syndrome?
Well, I wish I actually had a secret on that one because I do struggle with that one a
Mm,
lot. But I have found that knowing my calling and knowing the direction I want to go, it allows me to say no to a whole
mm,
lot of shiny objects that are very clearly not in that path. I
yeah.
still find too many are in the path, but I have to use discernment and prayer to really figure out how do I take those off the path.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned prayer there, because as entrepreneurs, um, especially if we are, use the term go-getters, right? Opportunities pop up all over the place, right? And sometimes they are not what you should be going after, right? Because
Mhm.
even though they could be something that profit, they could bring you revenue, they could do a lot of things for you. It's not in it's actually more going to be more of a distraction to your overall goal, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I have been part of a couple of books that were put out by Kyle Wilson.
mm.
And Kyle Wilson was the marketing guy behind Jim Rohn.
Oh,
So he
nice.
actually took Jim Rohn from, $400 per engagement to $10,000 per engagement type of fee, right? He actually built up the whole thing and everything. And so as part of that, I've been in two number one bestsellers last year. And that was getting more publicity and all that. But Kyle says he works on something they calls a wheel, and he says you have to know your hub. You have to know
Mm,
what you're really good at, what you're really meant to do, what really excites you, and all that. And yeah, you can have spokes that go off of that, but if it's outside of that spoke and outside of that wheel, it's really something not for you to take on. And so you can make a decision, okay, this is where I am, and does it fit in that wheel or not?
yep. Yep. Very, very true. I met someone a while back that was a friend of Jim Rohn's, Jim Britt. I'm not sure if you know who he is, but
I've heard the name. I'm
yeah,
not sure. Yeah.
yeah. He's actually been on the podcast. So,
Yeah. Great.
another question: how do you help individuals and organizations discover their calling?
Well, to me, it really fits down into one of three areas. Okay. And I think I focus first on identity. That's the who you are. That can be individual or organization. The community, that's the where do you spend your time. For an
Mhm.
individual, it's where are you spending your time with other people. Where's your church? Where's the place you hang out? Where's your support system? Who's supporting you? How are you supporting them? Now, for companies, that's where a lot of my teamwork stuff that I work on comes in. So, the community is really the company, so to speak, that
Hmm.
you're focused on at that point. So, how do you get the team to work better, to be more productive, to be more focused, to avoid shiny objects, those types of things,
Yeah.
right? And then the third piece is the calling. The calling is the why.
Hmm.
Why are you here? What's driving you? What's actually not what is driving you, but what's pulling you? What's
Hmm.
pulling you forward? That's the calling from God. That's a whole lot easier with individuals than with companies,
Hmm.
unless it's a solo company or unless it's, there's one primary person, whatever, in which case the calling is probably whatever their calling is. But when you get multiple people involved in a company, that gets a little bit messy. And so you really have to go through mission, vision, values, all
Hmm.
those standard things to really work out, okay, where's this company going at that
Yeah.
point? Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So, just a little bit on my background. I've run a marketing agency for over 15 years now, and much of the beginning, I had a my best friend was my business partner until he got married and moved away. And there for a while, I was a solopreneur and had various team members in and out. But I never felt a calling until just a few years back. And that's one of the reasons this podcast sprung about, because I've always wanted to give back to entrepreneurs. And I feel like sharing the stories of those that have come before you and gone through trials that may be upcoming for you or you've gone through
Mhm.
yourself, are always beneficial. But God has, in the last few years, put people in my path, has kind of laid the road for me, right? When I started not stop butting heads with God, right? I started stop trying to go my way and went his way. He has started to lay out the plan and direct me and give me the clarity of where I need to go. And I have not had more peace in my journey uh, up until this point, until now, because I know that it's not my will, it's His will, and
Mhm.
I'm being obedient, and I have joy in that obedience. Um,
Mhm.
and it's just great the people that He's brought into my life to help me fulfill that calling that He has for me. So
Yeah. That's what I hear stories of over and over and over again when I talk about calling and when people find their calling. They just have so much peace and so much joy. They may be still in the midst of what looks like a very stressful situation out there in the world or out there to the world, but they have peace and they have joy. And it provides a little bit more direction. Like I was saying, you can avoid a lot of those shiny objects out
yeah,
there. So
yeah,
yeah. There's several other things. You could get more fulfillment. You
mm,
have more impact. There's several other what I call secondary type things that also show up
yep.
as well.
Um, uh, yeah, I feel that too. I feel like one of the reasons I have such joy is because I feel like I'm making more of an impact than I ever had in the past. And it's
Mhm.
because I'm being obedient to God, and God is enabling me to have that impact. Um, and it's just a great thing. And what I've told my pastor recently is that there are still struggles in the business, right? But I have joy in the struggle.
Mhm.
He really liked that because I think there's evidence of people in the Bible that still had the joy when they were struggling, right? Because they
Mhm.
knew the God was with them, and that's
Exactly.
that. Somebody that's especially a non-believer would hear you say you have joy in the struggle. They probably wouldn't understand that, right?
Yeah. Well, unbelievers don't recognize the difference between joy and happiness, right?
That's right. That's right.
Happiness is a very momentary type thing. I think it was C.S. Lewis that said, if you want to have a Christian, if you want to be happy, you shouldn't choose a Christian life. You should go choose a bottle of port because that'll make you happy, right?
Hmm.
But the Christian life has struggles in it.
That's right.
But
That's
you
right.
you have such joy when you know that the struggles have an eternal purpose.
Hmm. Yeah, and non-Christians have struggles too, right? We no matter whether you're Christian or not, you're going to have struggles. I'd rather have struggles as a Christian and have God than struggle without him, because
Exactly.
it's not a fun place to be, because I know, like, I have peace and joy because I know that God has made promises to me, right? and
Mhm.
he's faithful to those promises. So, um, yeah, it's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah,
Now, I want to
it
ask you
is.
another question. Can you share a memorable experience where you've seen someone's life or business transform through your coaching?
Well, I'll mention my friend Sam Morrison. Sam had actually self-published 16 books when I met her.
Wow.
Was owner publisher of a neighborhood magazine type thing, but she was feeling unfulfilled. She was feeling stressed out. She was feeling overworked and overloaded. And this wasn't just because of the fact that she wasn't a Christian. She actually was a Christian. Okay, but this just wasn't working for her. And we go through some of my processes and we get through a part of it. And it's like she's just having light bulb after light bulb after light bulb through the process. When we get down towards the end, she starts talking about, I'm going to start a new company. And so we talk through that whole process. So April 1st of uh, 5 years ago, 2019, April 1st, 2019, she starts her new company. And she is like knocking it out of the park. She's fully booked in 30 days,
Wow.
doing all kinds of great things, right? And she's got so much peace and joy and fulfillment because she's really helping other people at this
Mm-hmm.
point. So anyway, fast forward now, almost 5 years later, she's got people working for her, helping her do this job that she does. She's got, I don't know, 30, 35 clients nationwide, and she has just made a tremendous impact. And she has now, kind of, she's trying to transition that company where she puts more work on the leadership team of the
Mm,
company, and she's off doing some other stuff, building up another business, so to speak, but it's a nonprofit business for her. And so
nice.
she has actually changed a whole lot of things. She's focused on women, and she's really helping women uh, with the self-care, which a lot of women have problems with.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Um, Something you said in there that I kind of want to go down that trail just a little bit is focus. Like I think it changes a lot. Like I think when some, especially new entrepreneurs, get into entrepreneurship, they start to focus on the wrong things of why they want to be in business, right? They
Mhm.
focus on I want to, yes, we all want to provide for our families, right? But they focus on the monetary things and things like that. And I really feel like this doesn't become fun and joyful until you start focusing on the right things, right? And because money is fleeting for one, right?
Mhm.
And it's not an eternal reward for sure.
Mhm.
But yeah, but can you speak on that, on focusing on the right things as you grow your business?
Well, that's part of what I mean when I say direction. But
Mm,
yeah, definitely focus is one of those. I call it more of a secondary value. It's just a whole lot easier to do the right thing and the thing that's going to move the needle forward when you know that the needle needs to move this direction
hmm.
and not that direction over there type of thing,
Yeah. Yep.
right? And so you can actually do a whole lot more. One of the things that Sam said to me after we got through a large part of the process and she'd set up her company and was moving down the road, she said, when you stop focusing on the right things and start focusing on the good things, the correct
Hmm.
things, it's like you stop swimming upstream.
Hmm.
And that's when the magic happens.
Yep. Yep. And the whole helping people, right? The reason really you should get into like, be in business is to help other people, right?
Hmm.
And
Exactly.
and if you do that and you do it well enough, the money's a byproduct, right?
Exactly.
So yeah. So awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. Let's talk about employees and teams a little bit. So what are some key strategies you use to help businesses retain and engage their employees effectively?
So I have been a big assessment guy. Matter of fact, way back in 2020, I actually wrote a book on assessments. It's called The Identity Key.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
and so it was basically a book as a business card type of thing, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it really did it really did make me focus on where was I providing value and how
Mm-hmm.
did I provide value and things like that. And so, two things that I use with teams is the Clifton Strengths and now the Working Genius. Both of those are really great for working with teams because you can get everybody to take those tests, and then you provide a team map from there so people can see how they overlap and how they maybe have conflict and
Mm,
other things like that. So that helps from just kind of more the logical
mm.
left brain side of things.
Yeah.
And then I bring in a lot of relational stuff that I've been working on, been learning with the brain science and the right side of the brain and how the relationships work, even bringing in techniques for resetting your joy level. When you just do like a 4x4 or box breathing and just take,
Wow.
breathe in for a count of four, breathe out, hold for a count of four, breathe out for a count of four, and hold, stay empty for a count of four. You do that 3 or 4 times, your whole system kind of
Mm,
resets.
mhm,
Okay. And then the other key to getting back to joy, because the brain really works on basically two fuels. Joy is the good fuel
mhm,
where the prefrontal cortex is fully engaged, you're fully human, everything's working right. And then the bad fuel is fear.
mhm.
And that's, whatever happens, when you look down, you think you're about to step on a snake, or, you hear the
Yeah.
bear chasing you in the woods or whatever, you go into fear mode, and, a whole lot of the higher level brain functions just shut down at that
Mhm,
point. And so being able to teach teams on, okay, let's just take a step back. If voices start getting elevated, let's just take a step
mm,
back and let's do some 4x4 breathing, or let's go back and say, okay, what's 3 things you're grateful for?
mhm,
Grateful and gratitude is one of the keys, because when you focus on something you're grateful for, it resets the brain back to joy as well. And joy is the good fuel, right? It's
mhm.
where you want to be. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so those are some of the ways that I help teams and businesses work together better.
Nice. I love that you mentioned that last part there. I don't know if you can see it behind me, but the Making God Number One in Your Business, that's a friend of mine's book, Maria Renee. And I partnered with her on the planner and journal that's next to that, the Entrepreneur Journey, Making God Number One in Your Business Planner and Journal, which is for Christian entrepreneurs to keep their eyes on the right place, right? Their faith and their business aligned, and doing it on a daily basis. And one of the things every day is, what are you grateful for? What are
Hmm.
3 things that you're grateful for that we put in there? And also, what are you praying for? Praying for others, praying, so
Yeah,
um, you and I are on the right track there.
yeah.
So nice,
Yeah.
nice.
I will mention another thing. This is maybe for entrepreneurs, maybe just a little bit of a step outside their comfort zone. But have you ever considered who actually owns your business?
It's not,
Because
it's,
God owns it all,
he
right?
does, he
Okay.
does. Yep.
So there was a time a few years ago that I actually wrote out a certificate, and I said, God is the CEO of Coach Dale.
Hmm.
And I signed it and I dated it. So,
Yep. Yep.
you turn those CEO functions over to God, and then I'm just the chief operating officer.
That's
I'm just
right.
here to do what he tells me to do.
Yep. Yep. You and I are tracking again, the same wavelength there. God is my CEO. He's driving this business. Like I'm just a tool that he uses to do his will, right? So,
Mhm.
um, and I'm
That's
happy.
that's another reason you have such joy, is because you're just a tool and you're being used the way you're supposed to be used. And
That's
so
that
of course you're going to have joy because you're doing what you were created to do.
that's right. And I find fulfillment in that. So,
Hmm.
it is really amazing. So, well, thank you so much, Dale, for this amazing interview. I'm sure there's a place that you would love to send the audience to find out more about you and how you can help them.
I have so many places. I'm going to make it simple
Okay.
this time. Just send an email to dale@coachdale.com. Dale@coachdale.com. Very simple URL, right? Just send an email if you want more free resources. Some of the things I've talked about here, my stories from those 2 number 1
Mm,
best-selling books, send you those stories immediately. I am in the process of getting a new community started
nice.
on a platform called ClickHubs, and it's all around the step into your calling side of things. And so you can jump into that community, get a lot of free resources and everything. So just send an email with the subject line free, and I'll send you those resources. If you
Nice.
actually want to talk to me, send me an email. to dale@coachdale.com with the word talk in the subject line, and I'll send you a link to my scheduler, and we can get time together to talk.
All right. That link, you're fine with me linking your email in the show notes and in the video description? Okay,
Absolutely.
we'll link that email below so that you can just click that and open your email provider and send Dale an email. Any parting words for our entrepreneurs today?
Oh gosh, parting words. One of my favorite quotes involves, what's the difference between an inheritance and a legacy?
Mm,
Okay. Now, there's a whole lot of things that people will say, and they're all right. Okay. But I like to say it this way. The difference between an inheritance and a legacy is one word of two characters. Because an inheritance is what you leave to someone. A legacy is what you leave in someone.
wow.
So step into your calling and craft a legacy you'll be proud of.
Wow. Wow. Nice. I love that. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you, everyone. And until next time, thank you, Dale. And thank you, everyone that's watching this. If you want to see more of these episodes, check them out on YouTube, your favorite podcast provider, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, keep moving forward.